Alexandra Martinez is the director of the Alachua County Crisis Center. She moved to Gainesville from Miami in 1994 to go to school. After completing her bachelor's degree in psychology, she received her master's and specialist degree in marriage and family therapy from the University of Florida. She then worked for several nonprofit organizations, providing counseling services to families struggling with issues of domestic violence, child abuse, and substance abuse. In 2005, Allie became the training coordinator at the Alachua County Crisis Center, where she ran the training program for crisis line counselors, provided consultation and training on crisis and suicide intervention, and served as supervisor and site coordinator for the Crisis Center's internship and family clinic programs. At the end of 2012, Allie left the Crisis Center to work as a student counseling specialist at the University of Florida Counseling and Wellness Center. In October of 2014, she returned to the county when she was hired as the director of the Crisis Center following Dr. Marshall Knudsen's retirement in August of 2014. Over the past 10 years, she has offered over 1,300 hours of workshops, trainings, and consultations on crisis and suicide intervention, culture and diversity issues, and couples and family therapy. In her spare time, she's an avid equestrian, kayaker, and has big dreams of someday completing her section hike of the Appalachian Trail. Welcome, Allie.
Thank you so much.
The first question is, how many sections do you have left? How many have you done?
Most of it. Most of it is left.
I'm so glad to have you here, particularly as we lead into the holidays, which can be a particularly trying time, I think, for everyone, but particularly people who are already distressed somehow. Why don't we take our viewers back a little bit and talk about the history of the Crisis Center? How did that get started in Alachua County?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. So in 1969, Dr. Richard McGee started the Crisis Center as a suicide prevention center to primarily provide suicide prevention services, but also do research. And they started a hotline that was volunteer run. And they quickly realized, in addition to the research that they were getting done, that it was an incredible resource for this community. Mm-hmm. And so in 1974, Alachua County decided to take over the Crisis Center, and it has been a county agency ever since.
So it received some, was it grant funding?
It was originally grant funded, absolutely.
And then in 74, the county took over?
Yes.
So how large is the Crisis Center? What is your staffing?
So we are 5 paid staff, and we are about 130 volunteers.
And these volunteers are the people that, when you call the Crisis Center hotline, these are the people that answer the phones?
These are the folks that answer the phones. These are people in our own community who are invested and care deeply about helping their neighbors. And they're the ones answering the phones 24/7.
And obviously, these people receive some sort of training.
Absolutely. Volunteers receive extensive training. It's 60 hours of training to begin working on our phone lines. And it's 60 hours of very extensive, both experiential training and lecture. And we want folks who are ready, willing, and able with an open heart to do this work.
I heard that this training was really rigorous, that I've heard there's some drop-off. Some people started and it's just too much to go through. But can you characterize who these volunteers are? Are they from all walks of life? Do you find that you have people that already have some experience, perhaps, in social work or psychology? Or?
We have volunteers who come from all over and all walks of life, and we really encourage that. We really want a volunteer system that's reflective of our community. And we have some folks who come in with some background, but most come in with no background or training at all. And it's the folks who end up working on our lines, the folks who are really so excited to be able to help the community in this way and are in a good place in their lives to do this work. and are really ready to offer sort of the empathy and the deep connection that it takes to offer people in severe distress that kind of help.
Right. In anticipation of our interview today, I Googled suicide in Alachua County. No, first I Googled suicide, and I got to the National Suicide Hotline, and I know we're connected with that organization. Is that correct?
Absolutely. In addition to local phone numbers that we answer, we are part of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Network, which is 1-800-273-TALK. And yes, we are very proudly a part of that lifeline.
And I went through the process once I got there, and it steered me to you. So it's working very well.
Wonderful.
I know you're accredited by the American Association of Suicidology.
Yes, yes.
I think that was the first time I'd heard that word.
Yes, yeah.
What does that involve?
So the American Association of Suicidology is a national organization that both funds a lot of research in suicide and does a lot of support and training and offering of resources to crisis centers throughout the country. They hold an annual conference and actually proudly say that most years the Alachua County Crisis Center is presenting at this conference.
Excellent.
And they come out every 5 years to do our reaccreditation and to make sure that the work that we're doing meets national standards.
I interviewed Marshall about, I'm going to say 8 or 9 years ago. At the time I interviewed him, he said Alachua County was somewhat unique in that it was a government-funded and operated suicide hotline. Is that still the case? Are we still unique in that respect?
We are. It's really, really special. Most crisis centers throughout the country are funded through nonprofit, through United Ways, and we are one of the only that are government-supported, county-funded. And I think it's a point of pride for this county to support the work that we do.
Can we do a little lightning round of the different services that you provide? I know you do 24-hour face-to-face counseling and crisis intervention services. Can folks come to you? Do you do walk-in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. People can walk into our office. If they're in distress, they're in crisis, they need somebody to talk to, they can call our hotline or they can walk in. And there'll be a counselor always there available to sit with them. The hotline is 24/7,
right.
Both our local numbers and the national numbers that we respond to. And we encourage anybody at any hour, if they're worried about themselves, they're worried about somebody else, to please, please give us a call.
Worried about somebody else is a really important point, I know. I think if somebody is so concerned about another human being that they call you, that's probably raises some important flags for you.
Absolutely.
What about the family clinic? What is that?
So our family clinic, we offer face-to-face counseling, again, Monday through Friday, 30 to 5. But our family clinic is a special clinic that we hold on Wednesday evenings, and it's specifically for couples and families, and it's sort of an additional kind of after-hours service that we're offering. Many families can't come during the day, and so we're offering this additional support, and our whole sort of team of internship students are usually part of that clinic.
And do you do that in the daytime as well? Is there a difference between daytime counseling services and emergency counseling services?
So you can have a counseling appointment, again, Monday through Friday during the day. You can do it by appointment, or you can walk in. So we offer both ongoing counseling services in addition to the crisis intervention services.
Tell me about the emergency crisis intervention outreach. That's your care team,
Yes.
right? Tell me what the care team does.
So our care team, again, Alachua County is really lucky. We're one of the only counties, only cities in Florida that offer this. We 24/7 will respond to people who are in distress out in the community, anywhere in Alachua County. We frequently work closely with law enforcement. If there has been an accident or a death, we'll respond to family, to loved ones, to bystanders, to provide on-scene support.
So this is different than reacting to something big. That's something else altogether. But if on a one-on-one kind of situation, you will go out
Absolutely.
I was not aware that you provided that service. Now, the community trauma response team or services, that's something different, right? Those are bigger kind of events?
Yes. When there's a larger scale community event, disaster, an event that impacts multiple people, multiple families, whole sections of our community, we will both respond in the moment and often do debriefings. And it's, again, our philosophies will respond anywhere at any time. And we both, those individual events or those larger scale events, we have teams of people who are ready to be there.
And unfortunately, there have been a lot of things nationwide where those kinds of services have been desperately needed. So
Absolutely.
If there's a situation that impacts a school, for example, and you're concerned about the well-being of students and how they're processing something like this, you're available.
Exactly, yes. So we've had many responses of this nature over the years, and if folks think of any sort of tragedy that has happened in our community over the last 30 years, chances are we've been involved, whether it's been major car accidents on the interstate, schools who've experienced some kind of tragedy, we've generally been there and been a part of the response.
Right. I have the pleasure of working with you when there's an emergency kind of floating around. I think some people are surprised to hear that you all transition from the crisis center kind of hotline, suicide hotline, to the 311 emergency line in the event of an emergency. It kind of becomes the rumor control line. And it is such a natural, kind of beautiful transition, because not only are you keeping in touch with communications and public information so that you know what the latest accurate information is, but you're also probably speaking to people who are in distress many times because of the nature of a hurricane coming or any other kind of emergency. So I really appreciate your staff in the event of an emergency. And you're in the same place, you press a button and your phone number becomes 311? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so it's the same place out of the crisis center, and what happens is that our staff, our volunteers, then if 311 becomes activated in a time of community emergency or disaster, when 311 is active, it then comes through on our phone lines, and that's in addition to the other phone lines.
The other number doesn't stop working.
The other numbers don't stop working.
Right.
It becomes an additional service that we're offering, and then we have teams of volunteers who will then staff those lines as well. And we have a whole room dedicated to rumor control and emergency response at that level. And it is, like you said, it's a really natural fit for us. We really are so glad to be involved in emergency operations in that way.
It is an enormous benefit to the Emergency Operations Center, because if the folks that were in there trying to deal with communications and infrastructure and all the different logistics of an emergency had to take each one of those phone calls, there would not be enough time to get the essential things done that need to be done. So it's a tremendous service that your volunteers provide and that you provide.
It's wonderful for us too, and I, in fact, had answered a few calls over the years when I was here in the past, and it is, like you said, folks call for information, but they're also worried. They're in distress at some level, and so we can provide both that resource, information that they need, and provide whatever other kind of support they might want.
Where can I get food? Where can I get water? Where can I get sandbags? Is it true that a tree is down in my neighborhood? I mean, there are so many elements involved. I know the Survivors of Suicide Support Group is near and dear to everyone at the Crisis Center. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So it's a wonderful group that we have had for many, many years. And we, in fact, started now providing an additional night a month. So now it's the first and third Wednesdays of the month. And it is a place for those who have lost a loved one to suicide to get support and to talk with others who have experienced a similar loss. The grief around suicide loss is very complicated and very intense, and it's very important for people to be able to have a safe space to be able to get support and talk with other survivors.
Do you do that at the at Community Support Services? Or where
Right
is that?
now, it is held at the Crisis Center.
Uh-huh.
If there's any changes with that, we're looking at the potential of offering it in the kind of closer into town. But the way to get information would be talk to Jan Green
Okay.
at the Crisis Center, and she'd be able to get both the information on location if that changes, and just give person more information.
Sure. I know that you do a lot of community and professional training and education programs. I have a long list. Tell me about the education and crisis suicide intervention support for Alachua County Public Schools.
So we have worked closely with Alachua County Public Schools for many years, and one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is being able to talk with officials at the schools, guidance counselors, staff, on how best to respond to youth who might be in crisis, who might be suicidal. I recently did a training for the guidance department, all the guidance counselors in Alachua County Schools on suicide risk assessment. And it is a lovely way for us to both provide our expertise, our training to them, but also talk about sort of ways to collaborate and provide ongoing support to individual students and their families.
And you do some education, just general community education programs?
Yes.
Are those just for all comers, or are those
Absolutely.
designed for professionals? Or
They are for anybody who is interested. We provide training to professionals, paraprofessionals, to citizens who are just interested in knowing more about suicide prevention. It is something that we really, really think is important. I feel like the more people know how to respond to somebody who is in crisis or feeling suicidal, the more comfortable people feel in reaching out to that person, having the conversation, the more likely it is that that person's going to get the help that they need. So our education, part of that is our passion for letting people know how to spot somebody who's in distress and how to get them help.
you also, though, do training for medical professionals and mental professionals.
Yes.
Is that what is the term, CPUs, or can you get your continuing?
CEUs?
CEUs.
It's something I have offered workshops that have offered CEUs in the past, and it's actually something that we're talking about doing again. That's absolutely something that we can offer and are looking to hopefully in the next year.
So, but these professionals can come to you, and are these popular? Are they well attended? Are they
Very
yeah.
well attended, and we
Yeah.
usually work closely with the University of Florida. We work closely with many organizations in town who contact us and say, hey, will you provide the training to this group or our volunteers? We have, last year we provided a couple of trainings that were just open to the public on communication skills and crisis intervention, and they were very well attended, and so we're looking at starting that series up again next year.
Excellent. I know your CIT program, your Crisis Intervention Training Program, is very well thought of and very important. You work with local law enforcement with that, is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So we are a part of the CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Team Steering Committee.
Yeah.
We are part of that steering committee, and our projects coordinator, outreach coordinator, Laurel Nesbitt, is in charge of coordinating those trainings and that steering committee. It is an incredibly valuable program that we offer law enforcement. We work with Sheriff's Office, University Police Department, the VA, Santa Fe, and GPD. And we offer this training approximately 3 times a year. In addition, we offer additional trainings for communications 911 staff. And it is an opportunity for them to learn crisis intervention skills, de-escalation.
Which I'm sure they have need for frequently.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful week of training. Our volunteers are part of the training at the end. They provide role plays to get them to sort of apply the skills that they've learned through the training, and we always get wonderful feedback. It's not an easy training, but it's a wonderful opportunity for them to learn kind of specific, both crisis intervention and even suicide awareness.
Do you find that they share stories about what they've encountered out in the field as law enforcement people?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful for us. We get to hear stories about their work, we tell them stories about ours, and so it's a really wonderful community collaboration, and it leads to collaboration out in the field. So when law enforcement are working with people in distress, they're more inclined to contact us so that we can provide whatever support to them, and we also obviously work with them if we feel like we need their support.
I was really amazed at the sheer volume of phone calls that you all take. How many phone calls do you get in an average year?
In an average year, it's approximately 40,000 calls.
And you've done the math about how many, or you get what, every 12 minutes, is it?
You get a phone call about every 12
yeah,
minutes.
Right.
It's on average, yes.
And is there a heavy period? Do they come at daytime, nighttime, or is
it is so unpredictable. It's across the board. We really never know, and it's wonderful. It's obviously very intense work, but the fact that we know that we are there for this community whenever. Crisis don't have a timeline. Crisis don't have a schedule.
No appointments.
No appointments. And so for that person who at 3 in the morning wakes up and is having a panic attack,
right,
and they just need somebody to talk them through, it's a great honor for us to be able to be there.
There's so much amazing statistical information. I was reading that you've done over 4,000 hours of services last year. 3,500 county professionals and people in the community have attended your programs. But I want to make sure I get this in before we run out of time, though. I know you've got, coming up on November 21st is the vigil. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. November 21st at 4 o'clock, we have the Survivors of Suicide Candlelight Vigil. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful event held at Coffrin Park, and encourage anybody to come join us. It's a wonderful event. It's a powerful event, a chance for survivors to get together and honor their loved ones.
And for those that don't know, at Coffrin Park is just that beautiful survivor of suicide area.
Absolutely. It's the Survivor of Suicide Memory Garden,
yeah,
and we believe it's the largest Survivor of Suicide Memory Garden in the world, actually. It's a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful place, and our Friends of the Crisis Center, which is a 501c3, it supports our Crisis Center volunteers, and they also built the garden. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. I encourage people to visit.
And it's particularly appropriate that it's at Coffrin Park, because I know Gladys Coffrin has been an amazing supporter of the Crisis Center.
Yes, very lucky, yeah.
You mentioned Friends of the Crisis Center. Now, don't they have a big party every year? Don't you do out at a park, a wonderful park?
Yes.
Is it the pig roast?
Yes,
yeah,
it's our pig roast.
That's a hot ticket to get to that event.
It is. It's special. Every February we have our annual pig roast, and it's a volunteer recognition event. And it's a chance for community and friends and family of our volunteers to celebrate and recognize the incredible work. Our volunteers put in about 40,000 hours a year into the Crisis Center, which is unbelievable amount of work. And so it's the least we can do is to celebrate them, and that it's a big blowout.
Yeah. We kind of started with this is the holidays, and that can be a particularly stressful time. Do your phone calls increase this time of year? Is there a correlation there?
Yeah, every now and then we'll see an increase. Oftentimes what we'll see is an increase what we'll see is a shift in the nature of the calls.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll see is people who have lost somebody, who've been through sort of major life transitions. The holidays can be a very, very difficult time. And so oftentimes, we're very aware of kind of being conscious that it can be a really, really difficult time.
I guess they focus on, family and love, and if you feel like those things are lacking in your life, that could heighten any suicidal thoughts or depressing kind of thoughts that you're having.
Absolutely.
I heard a story, and it just made me so proud of the Crisis Center. And now, were you with us in 2004?
Yeah.
When did you start again?
Oh, sorry, I was not. I was started in 2005.
2005. Well, in 2004, and I'm sure you know this story, when Katrina hit, or now I'm confused as to when Katrina hit. But anyway, their crisis center, or whatever their equivalent was apparently leveled when Katrina hit. And they were looking for help nationwide. And one of the places that got in touch with them was Alachua County. Can you tell me about the details of that?
Sure. And what happened was after Katrina, the New Orleans Crisis Center, was obviously, it wasn't operating. And all of the Crisis Center's functions for New Orleans moved to Baton Rouge. And so, along with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, reached out to crisis centers across the country to see who could help. And Alachua County was the first to respond. We sent a team over to Baton Rouge to respond to and help sort of the New Orleans Crisis Center keep functioning. And it was a time of great distress, obviously, and we were able to provide services, phone services, and support for that area.
I heard that when we responded that somebody said, well, look, do we have to get on a waiting list? And they informed us that we were the first ones to respond.
The first ones, absolutely.
It makes me very proud of Alachua County.
And that team of volunteers still talks about that experience as an incredibly powerful, moving experience. I know it was a great honor for them.
You mentioned that volunteers are kind of the heart and soul of what you do. Are you always looking for volunteers? Is there a constant kind of need?
We're always looking, absolutely. We do 3 training classes a year. Mm-hmm. The next one is coming up January 16th. And we encourage anybody who is interested at all in this work to apply. If you go to our website and look for the link on how to volunteer, there's an application. Jan Green is our training coordinator. And it is an incredible opportunity to impact this community. I know so many people who look for volunteer opportunities, find different things in the community, but it's often filing paperwork or, doing kind of busy work. Mm-hmm. And this absolutely isn't. This is a really incredible training to provide an incredible service to this community.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the amazing work you do.
Thank you. Thanks.
We used to write letters to each other a lot, and it was intimidating to talk to him sometimes because he just seemed so isolated by himself.
She started talking about how she wishes that her life was over and she wishes that she was never born.
So I knew he had depression, but I didn't know it was that far.
He said something to me about killing himself.
Tell somebody, tell an adult, a counselor, parent, whatever.
You have to try and help them get help.
You have to take it seriously. You can't assume that they're just saying it because the risk is too great.
It's a hard situation because you do risk making that person very angry and losing their friendship.
It would have been horrible for me if she never talked to me again, but I'd live with it because I know she'd be alive.
Definitely worth getting help, even if you think you're going to lose a friendship, because it's better to lose the friendship than the actual friend.